No one ever went down to the old family basement. After my son died, I went down there for the first time in years, ready to give away his things. But under the dust and empty boxes, I found papers that had nothing to do with him, and the worst part came when I opened the last box. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Daniel died 3 months ago. A heart attack, they said. Sudden, unexpected, devastating. He was only 46. I found him slumped over his desk in the small apartment he'd been renting in downtown Portland, surrounded by papers and coffee cups. The police called it tragic, but unremarkable. A life cut short by stress and genetics. But mothers know. We know when something doesn't fit. I'd been avoiding the basement since the funeral. Daniel had stored boxes there over the years. Things from his marriage, from Charlotte's childhood, items he couldn't bear to look at but refused to discard. I told myself I'd get to it eventually, maybe donate his clothes to Goodwill, sort through the memories when I felt stronger. Then my daughter-in-law called. Well, ex-daughter-in-law, Rebecca. "Grace, I need you to clear out Daniel's things," she said, her voice clipped and businesslike. "I'm selling some items, and I need to know what's mine and what was his." 23 years since the divorce, and she still spoke to me like I was the help. "Rebecca, he's been gone 3 months. I'm aware, but I have a buyer interested in some antiques he took when we split. I need an inventory." I wanted to tell her what I thought of her timing, her coldness, her complete absence from Daniel's life until there was something to be gained. Instead, I said, "I'll look into it," and hung up. That's how I found myself descending the basement stairs on a gray Tuesday morning in October, armed with garbage bags and a determination to finally face what I'd been avoiding. The basement smelled of damp earth and old cardboard. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. I'd been down here maybe twice in the last 5 years, once to check the water heater, once to retrieve Christmas decorations. Daniel had claimed the far corner as his storage space, stacking boxes in haphazard towers that looked like they might topple at any moment. I started with the obvious things: clothes, books, a box of old CDs. I made 3 piles: donate, trash, keep. It was mindless work, the kind that let my thoughts wander to safer places. I remembered Daniel at 10, building forts in the barn. Daniel at 16, bringing home his first girlfriend. Daniel at 23, holding newborn Charlotte in his arms with a look of such pure wonder that I'd cried. I was 3 boxes deep when I noticed the metal shelf against the back wall, partially hidden behind a stack of paint cans. It was old, rusted at the edges, and covered in dust thick enough to write in. Something about it caught my attention. Maybe the way it stood slightly away from the wall, as if it had been moved recently. I pushed the paint cans aside and pulled the shelf forward. It scraped against the concrete with a sound that made my teeth ache. Behind it was a suitcase. Not just any suitcase. A hard-shell Samsonite in faded navy blue, the kind businessmen carried in the 80s. It had combination locks on both latches, but they were open. Someone had been in here. Recently. My hands trembled as I lifted it. Heavy. I carried it to the center of the room, under the light, and knelt beside it on the cold floor. The latches clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet basement. Inside was a life I didn't recognize. Passports. 4 of them, each with Daniel's face but different names. Gerald Sullivan, Joe Henderson, Michael Craig, Thomas Brennan. The photos were recent, taken within the last 5 years. Different haircuts, glasses in some, clean-shaven in others, but unmistakably my son. Beneath the passports were photographs, dozens of them. Children, some smiling, some crying, some with blank expressions that made my stomach turn. Ages ranging from toddlers to teenagers. On the back of each photo was a date and a location. Portland, March 2019. Seattle, July 2020. Spokane, November 2021. My breath caught. These weren't vacation photos. These were surveillance images, documentation. Some showed children in institutional settings, plain rooms with metal beds. Others showed them being led by adults in suits. One showed a girl who couldn't have been more than 8, handcuffed in the back of an unmarked van. What had Daniel been involved in? I found letters next, bundled with rubber bands, postmarked from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana. No return addresses. I opened one with shaking hands. The shipment is delayed. Border Patrol increased surveillance. The mother must not know. Will attempt alternative route through Coeur d'Alene. Confirm receipt. J. Another. D. 3 more extracted from the Portland facility. Ages 6, 9, and 11. Medical records attached. Need safe house coordinates before Friday. Clock is ticking. R. The words swam before my eyes. Shipment. Extracted. Safe house. This was the language of criminals, of traffickers, of people who operated in shadows and disappeared when the light got too bright. But there was more. At the bottom of the suitcase, in a manila folder, I found an ID badge. Federal, by the look of it, though no agency was listed, just a string of numbers and Daniel's photo. His real name this time. And beneath it, a single word. Consultant. My mind raced. Consultant for what? Who? Then I saw the second folder. Thinner, older, the manila worn at the edges. My hands knew what it was before I opened it. Charlotte. 23 years of nightmares lived in that folder. Police reports from the day she disappeared. April 14th, 2002, from Laurelhurst Park in Portland. She'd been 5 years old, wearing a yellow sundress and light-up sneakers. Daniel had taken her to the playground while Rebecca was at a work conference. He'd turned his back for 90 seconds to answer a phone call. When he turned around, she was gone. The police searched for months, dragged the river, combed the woods, interviewed every registered sex offender in a 50-mile radius. Nothing. Charlotte Holloway had simply vanished, as if she'd never existed at all. The marriage ended 6 months later. Rebecca blamed Daniel, and he blamed himself. He threw himself into work. Software development, I'd thought, boring but stable. He became distant, unavailable, consumed by something I couldn't name. I assumed it was grief. Now I understood. He'd never stopped looking. The folder contained everything. Witness statements, timeline reconstructions, maps with circles and crosses marking locations. But there were new documents too, dated years after the official investigation closed. Private investigator reports, financial records tracing suspicious payments, and photographs. One photograph in particular made the room tilt. A girl, maybe 16 or 17, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, standing outside a building I didn't recognize. The photo was grainy, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. Someone had drawn a circle around her face in red marker. On the back, in Daniel's handwriting, Charlotte, 70% match. Sacramento, June 2024, 3 months before he died. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from crying out. He'd found her, or thought he had, and he'd died before he could bring her home. Unless, the thought hit me like cold water. What if his death hadn't been natural? What if someone had found out what he was doing, what he'd discovered? I rifled through the remaining papers with new urgency. There were more photographs of the girl. Outside a house, getting into a car, walking with a woman who kept her hand on the girl's shoulder like a guard. And there were notes, cryptic and hurried. Subject under constant supervision. Never alone. Multiple handlers. Possible trafficking connection. Sacramento operation connected to Portland network? Same markers as 2019 extraction. Need verification before approach. Cannot risk spooking them. Cannot lose her again. The last entry was dated 2 weeks before Daniel died. Meeting scheduled. Jay says he can get me inside. This is it. 21 years. Finally bringing my baby home. A sound from upstairs made me freeze. Footsteps on the porch, heavy and deliberate. Then knocking. Sharp. Official. I closed the suitcase quickly, my heart hammering. Who knew I was down here? Who could possibly? Mrs. Holloway? Grace Holloway? A man's voice, deep and authoritative. Portland Police. We need to speak with you about your son. I stared at the suitcase, at the evidence of a life I'd never known, at the possibility that my granddaughter might still be alive. The knocking came again, more insistent. Mrs. Holloway, we know you're home. Please open the door. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. This wasn't a condolence call. This was something else. I grabbed the folder with Charlotte's information and one of the passports, stuffed them inside my cardigan, and pushed the suitcase back behind the shelf. My knees protested as I stood, but adrenaline pushed me forward. As I climbed the basement stairs, I made a decision. Whatever Daniel had been involved in, whatever danger he'd faced, I would finish what he'd started. I would find Charlotte. I would uncover the truth. And I would do it before whoever killed my son came looking for what he'd left behind. The police were waiting at my front door. Through the window, I could see two of them. One young and eager, one older with eyes that had seen too much. The older one had his hand resting on his belt near his gun. They weren't here to help. I smoothed my cardigan over the stolen documents, took a breath, and opened the door with the smile I'd perfected over 68 years of being underestimated. "Officers," I said warmly, "what can I do for you?" The older one didn't smile back. "We need to ask you some questions about items found in your son's apartment. Items that suggest he may have been involved in activities of significant concern to federal authorities." Federal authorities. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression pleasant, confused, the harmless old woman they expected to see. "I'm afraid I don't understand." Daniel was a software consultant. "Ma'am, your son was under investigation for suspected involvement in an illegal adoption network. We have evidence that suggests he may have been trafficking children across state lines." The words hit me like a slap. Trafficking. They thought Daniel was a criminal. They had it all wrong. But if I told them what I'd found, they'd take everything. The suitcase, the evidence, the trail to Charlotte. They'd bury it in paperwork and procedures, and my granddaughter would disappear all over again. So I did what Daniel had apparently learned to do. I lied. "Officers, I think there's been a terrible mistake. The police didn't believe me." I could see it in the way the older officer, Detective Marlowe, he'd introduced himself, watched my face as I spoke. He was looking for tells, for the micro-expressions that would reveal I was lying. And I was lying, of course, but 68 years of being a mother, a wife, a woman in a world that constantly demanded performance had taught me how to wear masks. "Mrs. Holloway," Detective Marlowe said, his voice deceptively gentle, "we're not accusing you of anything. We simply need to understand what your son was involved in, for his sake as much as anyone's." "Daniel was a good man," I said firmly. "He worked with computers. He kept to himself after the divorce. I don't know anything about illegal adoptions or trafficking." The words still tasted like poison in my mouth. The younger officer, Rivera, shifted his weight. "Ma'am, we found encrypted files on his computer. Communications with individuals on federal watch lists. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. This goes beyond simple misunderstanding." My mind raced. Daniel had been careful, meticulous. If they'd found encrypted files, what else had they found? And more importantly, what were they still looking for? "I'd like to see a warrant," I said quietly. Marlowe's eyebrows rose slightly. "Excuse me?" "A warrant. If you want to search my property, I believe you need a warrant. My son lived in Portland. This is Gresham. Different jurisdiction. And unless I'm under arrest, I don't have to answer your questions." The mask slipped just slightly on Marlowe's face. He hadn't expected me to know my rights. He'd expected a confused old woman, eager to help, easily manipulated. "We're just trying to help, Mrs. Holloway." "Then come back with a warrant. I've been cooperative. I've answered your questions. But I'm tired, and I'm grieving, and I'd like you to leave now." They exchanged glances. Rivera looked like he wanted to push harder, but Marlowe nodded slowly. "We'll be in touch," he said. "Don't leave town." I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the wood until they steadied. They'd be back. With a warrant, with more questions, with authority I couldn't deflect with polite refusals. I had maybe 24 hours, 48 if I was lucky. I returned to the basement and retrieved the suitcase. This time I brought it upstairs to my bedroom, locked the door, and spread everything across my bed. I needed to understand what Daniel had been doing. I needed to find the thread that would lead me to Charlotte. I started with the letters, reading each one carefully, making notes. A pattern emerged. Daniel hadn't been trafficking children, he'd been rescuing them. The language that had seemed sinister in isolation made sense in context. Extractions meant removing children from dangerous situations. Safe houses meant temporary shelter. Shipments meant transport to legitimate foster families or reunification with relatives. But who had he been working with? The letters were signed with initials only, J.R.M.K. No full names, no way to trace them. Clearly, this operation was deeply clandestine, operating outside official channels, which meant outside the law. I understood now why the police saw trafficking. To them, the evidence looked damning. But I knew my son. He would never hurt a child. He'd spent 21 years trying to save them because he couldn't save his own daughter. My phone rang, shattering the silence. I jumped, scattering papers across the bed. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Grace. Her voice was tight, stressed. Did the police come to see you? How did you know? They came here first. Asking about Daniel, about his work, about... She paused. About Charlotte. My blood went cold. What did they ask about Charlotte? Whether Daniel had ever mentioned finding her. Whether he'd been searching. Grace. What was he involved in? I chose my words carefully. I don't know yet. But Rebecca, did Daniel ever talk to you, in the last few months? About anything unusual? We hadn't spoken in years. Not really. Just... She stopped. There was something. About 2 months ago, he called me. Late at night. He was drunk, or I thought he was. He said something strange. He said, I was right, Becca. I was always right. She's alive. The room spun. What else? What else did he say? Nothing that made sense. Something about Sacramento, about proof, about how he'd make it right. I thought he was having some kind of breakdown. I told him to get help and hung up. Grace, Her voice cracked. I didn't know it would be the last time we'd speak. Did you tell the police this? No. Should I have? No, I said quickly. Too quickly. No, it was just grief. Confusion. Don't mention it again. Silence on the line. Then, Grace, what's going on? The police seemed to think Daniel was involved in something criminal. They asked if he had storage units, safety deposit boxes, places he might have kept records. They asked about you too, whether you were close, whether he confided in you. They were building a case, not just against Daniel, but potentially against anyone who might have helped him, including me. I have to go, I said. Grace, wait. I hung up. My hands were shaking again. I needed help. Someone who understood investigations, who could navigate this world Daniel had entered. But who? The police clearly thought Daniel was a criminal. His mysterious contacts were unreachable, communicating only through dead drops and coded messages. I was alone. No, not quite alone. I remembered something from the suitcase. Business cards, tucked into a side pocket. I dumped the contents onto the bed and found them. 3 cards, all from the same person. Jennifer Walsh, private investigator specializing in missing persons and cold cases. A Portland address, a phone number, and on the back of one card, in Daniel's handwriting, trustworthy, worked Seattle extraction, knows the networks. It was 7 in the evening. I dialed before I could second-guess myself. She answered on the 3rd ring. Walsh Investigations. My name is Grace Holloway. I'm Daniel Holloway's mother. I found your card and his belongings. A pause. Then quietly, I'm so sorry for your loss. Daniel was a good man. You worked with him. Another pause, longer this time. Mrs. Holloway, we shouldn't discuss this on the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow? The police came today. They think he was trafficking children. Shit. The profanity surprised me. Okay. Listen carefully. Don't talk to them again without a lawyer. Don't touch anything in Daniel's apartment or storage. Don't. I found a suitcase. In my basement. With passports, photographs, letters. Silence. Then, does anyone else know about this? No. Keep it that way. Can you bring it to my office? Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Come alone. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I need to know. Is my granddaughter alive? The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, I don't know. But Daniel believed she was. And Daniel was very, very good at finding people who didn't want to be found. The police will be back with a warrant. Then we have less time than I thought. 8 a.m., Mrs. Holloway. And Grace, be careful. The people Daniel was investigating, they're dangerous. They have money, connections, and a lot to lose if their operation gets exposed. If they think you know what he knew. Are you saying they killed him? I'm saying his heart attack was very convenient timing. 8 a.m., don't be late. The line went dead. I sat on my bed, surrounded by evidence of my son's secret life, and felt the weight of what I'd stepped into. This wasn't just about finding Charlotte anymore. This was about survival. I spent the next hour photographing every document, every photograph, every letter. I uploaded them to a cloud storage account I created using a fake email address, following instructions I found on YouTube. If something happened to me, if the evidence disappeared, there would still be a record. Then I hid the suitcase in the one place no one would think to look, inside the gun safe in my closet, wrapped in Tom's old hunting clothes. The combination was Charlotte's birthday. Daniel had said it years ago, when we still believed she might come home for her 6th birthday, her 7th, her 10th. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every sound made me jump, every creak of the house settling, every gust of wind against the windows. Around midnight, I got up and checked the locks on all the doors. I pushed a chair against my bedroom door. I kept my phone on the nightstand, 911 already dialed, my thumb hovering over the call button. At 2 a.m., I heard a car on the gravel drive. I moved to the window, staying in shadow. A dark sedan, no headlights, rolling slowly past the house. It paused at the end of the driveway, idling. I could see the silhouette of someone in the driver's seat, looking up at the house, looking at my bedroom window. I stepped back, my heart in my throat. The car sat there for what felt like an eternity. Then it rolled forward and disappeared down the road. I didn't sleep after that. At dawn, I dressed carefully. Sensible clothes, comfortable shoes, my largest purse. I retrieved the suitcase from the gun safe and transferred the most important documents into my purse. The photographs of Charlotte, the letters that mentioned Sacramento, Daniel's badge, one of the passports. I was leaving the house when my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Grace Holloway? A woman's voice, smooth and professional. This is Amanda Brown from the Department of Human Services. I'm calling about a complaint filed regarding your welfare. Concerns have been raised about your ability to live independently at your age. We'd like to schedule a home visit. My blood ran cold. A complaint? From whom? I'm not at liberty to say. But, given your son's recent death and certain allegations about family dysfunction, we need to ensure you're being properly cared for. Would tomorrow afternoon work? This was a trap. Someone trying to get into my house to search without a warrant, or worse, trying to have me declared incompetent, unable to make my own decisions. I'm afraid I'm not available this week, I said. I'll call you back to schedule. Mrs. Holloway, this is a serious matter. I hung up. My hands were shaking again as I got into my car. 7:15. I had 45 minutes to get to Portland, to Jennifer Walsh, to someone who might be able to help me navigate this nightmare. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw it. A second car, parked on the road about 100 yards from my gate, different from the one last night. A man sat behind the wheel, pretending to look at his phone. They were watching me. I drove toward Portland, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds. The car followed at a distance, making no attempt to hide. They wanted me to know they were there. They wanted me afraid. I was afraid, but I was also angry, and I was done being underestimated. Daniel had taught me one final lesson. Even in death, sometimes the only way to protect the people you love is to become someone you never thought you could be, someone willing to fight back. Jennifer Walsh's office was in a converted warehouse in Portland's industrial district, the kind of neighborhood that hadn't quite decided whether it was becoming trendy or staying dangerous. I parked in the visitor lot and watched the street for 10 minutes, waiting to see if the car that had followed me would appear. It didn't. Either I'd lost them in downtown traffic, or they already knew where I was going. Neither option was comforting. The office was on the third floor, accessed by a freight elevator that groaned ominously as it ascended. The hallway smelled of coffee and old carpet. A frosted glass door at the end bore the words, Walsh Investigations, in simple black lettering. I knocked. The door opened immediately, as if she'd been waiting right behind it. Jennifer Walsh was younger than I'd expected. Mid-30s with sharp eyes and dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail. She wore jeans and a blazer, and there was a tension in her shoulders that suggested she was coiled and ready to move at any moment. Mrs. Holloway, come in, quickly. She ushered me inside and locked the door behind us. The office was sparse but organized. A desk with 2 monitors, filing cabinets, a small conference table covered in maps and photographs. One wall was entirely corkboard, covered in what looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Photos connected by red string, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes. Did anyone follow you? She asked. Yes. A dark blue sedan. I lost them on Burnside, I think. She nodded, moving to the window and adjusting the blinds so she could see the street without being seen. They're getting bolder. That's not good. Who are they? That's complicated. Did you bring the suitcase? I set my purse on the table and began removing the documents I'd transferred. I brought the most important pieces. The rest is hidden. She watched me lay out the papers, her expression unreadable. When I placed Daniel's badge on the table, she exhaled slowly. He showed you this? He didn't show me anything. I found it after he died. Ms. Walsh, I need you to tell me the truth. What was my son involved in? She pulled out a chair and gestured for me to sit. Then she sat across from me and folded her hands on the table. How much do you know about private adoption networks? I know they exist. I know some are legitimate and some aren't. Daniel was tracking one of the ones that aren't. A network operating across 5 Western states, moving children through a system that looks legal on paper but is anything but. These aren't orphans being placed in loving homes, Mrs. Holloway. These are children being stolen. From poor families, from indigenous communities, from parents deemed unfit by a system designed to fail them. Then they're sold to wealthy families willing to pay 6 figures for a healthy infant or a young child. My stomach turned. And Daniel was investigating this? More than investigating. He was infiltrating. He'd spent 3 years building identities, making contacts, earning trust. He'd helped extract 7 children from the network and reunite them with their biological families. He was working with a small group of former law enforcement and social workers who'd seen enough corruption to go rogue. Why didn't he go to the authorities? Because the authorities are compromised. We're talking about judges, social workers, lawyers, even some police. People with clean records and spotless reputations. When money flows the way it does in this network, millions of dollars annually, it buys a lot of protection. I thought of Detective Marlowe, of his carefully neutral expression. The police who came to my house. Are they part of it? I don't know. That's the problem. We don't know how deep it goes or who we can trust. That's why Daniel operated in secret. That's why he used fake identities and coded messages. She paused. And that's why I think he was killed. The words hung in the air between us. I'd suspected it, feared it, but hearing it said aloud made it real. You think someone found out what he was doing. I think someone found out he was close to finding Charlotte, and I think they couldn't let that happen. My hands clenched on the table. Because Charlotte is part of the network. Yes. Or was. Mrs. Holloway, you need to understand. Your granddaughter was taken 23 years ago. If she's alive, if Daniel really found her, she's been living a completely different life for more than 2 decades. She may not remember you. She may not want to be found. I don't care. She's family. She belongs with family. Jennifer's expression softened. I understand. But there's more you need to know. She stood and moved to her wall of evidence, tapping a photograph of a large Victorian house. This is the Sacramento location Daniel was watching. It's registered as a group home for troubled teens, licensed and inspected by the state. But Daniel believed it was actually a staging point, a place where older children who've been in the network for years are held before being moved to new locations or... She trailed off. Or what? or disposed of when they become too old, too aware, too difficult to control. Horror washed over me. You're saying they kill them. I'm saying some children go in and never come out, and the records are always clean. Runaways, transfers to other facilities. The paperwork exists, but the children don't. She pulled down another photograph, the same teenage girl I'd seen in Daniel's files. This is the girl Daniel thought might be Charlotte. She was photographed outside the Sacramento facility 6 times over a 3-month period. Always supervised. Never alone. And then 2 weeks before Daniel died, she disappeared from surveillance. Where did she go? We don't know. Daniel was scheduled to meet with an informant, someone inside the network who claimed to have information about her identity and location. That meeting was supposed to happen the day after he died. My chest tightened. The meeting never happened. No. The informant vanished too, and Daniel had a convenient heart attack at 46, with no prior history of heart disease. I reached into my purse and pulled out the photograph of the girl, studied her face, looking for traces of the 5-year-old I'd lost. The dark hair was right. The shape of her face, the way she held herself. There was something familiar. But 23 years changed a person, made them a stranger. What do we do? I asked. Jennifer sat back down, her expression grave. We have a problem. The police are building a case against Daniel, which means they'll come after anyone connected to him. They'll paint him as a criminal, discredit any evidence he gathered, and shut down any investigation into the network. If you push forward, if you try to find Charlotte, you'll become a target. I'm already a target. Someone's watching my house. Someone called pretending to be from social services trying to get inside. Her jaw tightened. Then they know you found something. They're trying to determine how much you know and how much of a threat you are. What would you do? If Charlotte were your family? She met my eyes. I'd be very, very careful. Because these people don't just discredit threats, Mrs. Holloway. They eliminate them. And they're very good at making it look natural. A knock on the door made us both jump. Jennifer's hand went to her waist, where I now noticed the outline of a holster under her blazer. Did anyone know you were coming here? She whispered. No. I told no one. She moved to the door silently, checked the peephole, and her entire body went rigid. She turned to me with an expression that made my blood run cold. Hide. Now. Under the desk. What? Now! I scrambled under the desk as the knocking came again, harder this time. Jennifer straightened her blazer, composed her face, and opened the door. Detective Marlowe, she said coolly. This is a surprise. From my hiding place, I could see his shoes, expensive leather, recently polished. Another pair of shoes appeared behind him. Rivera. Ms. Walsh, we're looking for Grace Holloway. Her car is parked in your lot. My heart stopped. I don't know anyone by that name, Jennifer said smoothly. Her vehicle is registered to an address in Gresham. She's the mother of Daniel Holloway, your former client. Don't insult my intelligence. Daniel Holloway hired me 3 years ago to locate his missing daughter. That case is closed. If his mother is in the building, I wouldn't know about it. This is a commercial building with multiple offices. Then you won't mind if we take a look around. Actually, I would. Do you have a warrant? A pause. I could feel the tension crackling through the air. We can get one, Marlowe said. Then come back when you have it. Until then, get out of my office. The shoes didn't move. Ms. Walsh, I'm trying to be reasonable here. We just want to ask Mrs. Holloway some questions. About a son she buried 3 months ago. A son you're now accusing of being a criminal. I'm sure she'll be thrilled to cooperate. We have evidence that Daniel Holloway was involved in illegal adoptions. If his mother is helping to conceal evidence, she could face charges as an accessory. Then charge her. Bring your warrant, bring your evidence, do this by the book. But right now you're harassing a PI in her place of business without cause. So unless you want me to file a complaint with your captain, I suggest you leave. Another long pause. Then, we'll be back. The door closed. Jennifer locked it and engaged a deadbolt. She moved to the window and watched the street below. After what felt like an eternity, she said, They're getting in their car, but they're not leaving. They're parking across the street. I crawled out from under the desk, my knees protesting. They followed me. No, they knew you'd come here. which means they know about Daniel's connection to me. She turned from the window, her face pale. Which means someone's been talking, someone inside our network. What does that mean? It means we have a traitor, someone who's been feeding information to the people running the adoption network, someone who knew Daniel was close to finding Charlotte and made sure he didn't live long enough to bring her home. The room seemed to tilt. Who? Who would? I don't know. But we need to find out before they realize how much you know. Because right now, you're the only person who has Daniel's evidence. You're the only person who can expose them, which makes you the most dangerous person in this entire operation. She moved to her desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a burner phone. Take this. Memorize my number. It's programmed in. Don't use your regular phone for anything related to this investigation. Assume everything you say and do is being monitored. This is insane. This is survival. Mrs. Holloway, I need you to understand something. The people running this network have resources we can't match. They have money, political connections, law enforcement on their payroll. They've been operating for decades, and they've never been caught because they're meticulous about eliminating threats. Then how do we stop them? She handed me the phone. We do what Daniel was doing. We gather evidence, we document everything, and we find someone in authority who isn't compromised. Someone high enough up that they can't be bought or threatened. And Charlotte? Jennifer's expression softened. We find her first, before they realize we're looking. Before they can move her or... She stopped. Or kill her, I finished. She didn't deny it. I looked down at the burner phone in my hand, at the simple piece of plastic that represented my lifeline. Then I looked at the photograph of the teenage girl who might be my granddaughter. Tell me what to do, I said. Go home, act normal, grieve your son. If the police come back, lawyer up and say nothing. In the meantime, I'll reach out to my contacts, see who I can trust. We need to find out who the traitor is before we make any moves on Charlotte. How long will that take? Days? Maybe a week? I thought of Charlotte, held somewhere against her will, unaware that her father had spent 23 years searching for her, unaware that he'd died trying to bring her home. She doesn't have a week. If they know Daniel found her, if they think we're going to come for her, I know. But if we move too fast, if we tip them off, she'll disappear again. This time for good. A horrible thought occurred to me. What if she already has? What if she disappeared 2 weeks ago because they were already moving her? Jennifer's silence was answer enough. I stood, gathering the documents back into my purse. I'm not waiting. Daniel left me these clues for a reason. He wanted me to finish what he started. Mrs. Holloway, Grace, you're not trained for this. You don't know these people, what they're capable of. They took my granddaughter. They killed my son. And now they're threatening me. I met her eyes. I'm 68 years old. I've raised children, buried a husband, and survived more than you can imagine. Don't underestimate me because of my age. Something shifted in her expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition of something she saw in me. The same stubbornness that had driven Daniel. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, but we do this smart. We do this together. And you follow my lead. Agreed. Then we start with the informant. The one who was supposed to meet Daniel the day after he died. I might be able to track him down, convince him to talk. And if he won't? She smiled grimly. Then we convince him, one way or another. We spent the next hour planning. Jennifer gave me a crash course in operational security. How to spot a tail, how to use the burner phone, how to create dead drops for information exchange. She made me memorize addresses and contact codes. She showed me how to encrypt files and use secure email. By the time I left her office, I felt like I'd aged another 10 years. The police car was still parked across the street. I walked to my car with my head high, refusing to look in their direction. As I pulled out of the lot, they followed. Let them, I thought. Let them watch an old woman drive home, make tea, tend her garden. Let them think I was harmless. They had no idea what I was capable of. None of us did. Not yet. But I was about to find out. The police followed me all the way to Gresham. I took the long route, stopping at a grocery store, a pharmacy, the post office, performing the mundane rituals of a grieving widow going about her day. At each stop, the dark sedan waited at a distance. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. When I finally pulled into my driveway, they parked on the road and settled in. A message. We're watching you. I carried my groceries inside, made myself tea, and sat at the Kit K table staring at the burner phone Jennifer had given me. The house felt different now. No longer a sanctuary, but a cage. Every window felt like an eye watching me. Every shadow held a threat. The phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Clear your schedule tomorrow. We have a lead on Jay. Be ready at 6 a.m. Walsh, Jay. The informant who was supposed to meet with Daniel. The one who'd vanished. I texted back. Understood. Then I did what any smart person would do when they're being watched. I went about my evening routine exactly as I had for the past 3 months. Made dinner, watched the news, turned on the porch light at 8, turned off the downstairs lights at 9:30, bedroom light on at 9:45. But I didn't sleep. I sat in the darkness and watched the sedan on the road, watched the occasional sweep of a flashlight across my property, watched the hours tick by. At 3 a.m., my regular phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed a local number and something made me pick up. Mrs. Holloway? A woman's voice, young and frightened. Please don't hang up. My name is Eva. I knew your son. My pulse quickened. How? He helped me. 3 years ago. I was being held at a facility in Eugene. Daniel got me out, reunited me with my birth mother. He saved my life. Her voice cracked. I just heard he died. I'm so sorry. Thank you, I managed. But why are you calling at 3 in the morning? Because they're listening during the day. Mrs. Holloway, I need to warn you. There are people looking for Daniel's files, his evidence. They know he was close to something big. They think you might have it. Who told you this? I still have connections. People inside the network who owe me. One of them reached out tonight. Said to warn you. They're planning something. My mouth went dry. What kind of something? I don't know exactly. But Mrs. Holloway, you need to be careful. These people, they made Daniel's death look natural. They can do the same to you. Please hide his evidence. Don't trust the police. Don't trust anyone. Eva, do you know anything about Sacramento? About a girl Daniel thought might be... The line went dead. I tried calling back. The number rang 3 times, then disconnected. When I tried again, I got a recording. The number you have dialed is not in service. I sat in the darkness, my heart hammering. They're planning something. I needed to move the evidence. If the police came back with a warrant, if someone broke in, if something happened to me, it all needed to be somewhere safe, somewhere no one would think to look. At 4 a.m., I made a decision. I retrieved the suitcase from the gun safe, along with all the documents I'd photographed. Then I went to the Kit K and pulled out a large cooler from the pantry. I wrapped everything in plastic bags, sealed them carefully, and placed them in the cooler. From the garage, I grabbed a shovel. The moon was waning, but provided enough light to see by. I walked to the far corner of the property, where Tom's workshop had stood before a fire took it 10 years ago. The foundation was still there, overgrown with blackberry vines and wild grass. No one came here anymore. No one remembered it existed. I dug in the corner where Tom had kept his tool chest, where the concrete was cracked and the earth was soft. My back protested. My arms burned. But I kept digging. 2 feet down, I placed the cooler and covered it again, smoothing the earth and scattering debris over the disturbed soil. By the time I finished, the sky was lightening in the east. I was covered in dirt and sweat, my clothes ruined, my hands blistered. But the evidence was safe. I showered quickly and changed into fresh clothes. At exactly 6 a.m., the burner phone buzzed. White Honda Civic, 2 blocks east of your house. Come alone. Make sure you're not followed. I left through the back door and walked through the woods that bordered my property, coming out on a different road entirely. The police sedan was still parked at my front gate, watching a house where all the lights were off. They thought I was sleeping. The white Honda was idling exactly where Jennifer said it would be. I got in the passenger seat and she pulled away immediately. Good, she said, glancing in the rearview mirror. You weren't followed. Someone called me last night. A girl named Eva. She said people are planning something, that I need to hide Daniel's evidence. Jennifer's hands tightened on the wheel. Eva James? Dark hair? Early 20s? She didn't say her last name. Did she say how she knew they were planning something? She said she still has connections inside the network. Jennifer cursed under her breath. That's either very good or very bad. Eva was one of Daniel's extractions, one of his success stories. But if she's still in contact with people inside the network, she could be compromised. She sounded genuinely frightened. Or genuinely convincing. We can't trust anyone, Grace. Not until we know who the traitor is. We drove in silence for a while, heading west toward Portland. Finally, I asked, "Where are we going?" "To meet someone who might be our informant." Might be. I reached out through back channels and I got a response. He's willing to meet, but he has conditions. What kind of conditions? He wants assurance that we can protect him. He wants money. And he wants out. A new identity. A fresh start away from Oregon. Can we do that? She shook her head. No. But we can lie and say we can. Once we get the information we need, he's on his own. The coldness in her voice surprised me. That's not very ethical. Ethics went out the window when they killed your son, Grace. We're playing by different rules now. We pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner in an industrial area of North Portland. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and bacon grease. A handful of workers sat at the counter, night shift people heading home. In the back booth sat a man in his 40s, thin and nervous, his eyes darting to every person who entered. Jennifer slid into the booth across from him. I sat beside her. "You brought someone," he said accusingly. "Daniel's mother. She has a right to know what happened to her son." He studied me for a long moment. "My condolences. Daniel was a good man. Better than most." "Then help us," I said. "Tell us what you know." He glanced around the diner, then leaned forward. "My name is Gerald. I worked for the network for 8 years. Started as a caseworker, moved up to transport coordination. I helped move children from one location to another, always under the guise of legitimate transfers. It wasn't until 2 years ago that I realized what I was really doing." "Which was?" Jennifer asked. "Erasing identities. Making children disappear from the system so completely that even if their families searched, even if police investigated, the trail would go cold. We created false records, false placements, false deaths. We had judges who would sign any order, social workers who would file any report, police who would look the other way." My stomach turned. "And Daniel found out. Daniel infiltrated us. He posed as a transport driver, gained our trust. He documented everything, routes, locations, names. He was building a case that would take down the entire network." Gerald's hands shook as he reached for his coffee. "But someone found out. Someone high up. They put out an order. Find Daniel's evidence and eliminate the threat." "Who?" I demanded. "Who gave the order?" He shook his head. "I don't know the name. The network operates on a need-to-know basis. But I can tell you this. It's someone with serious power. Someone who can make people disappear and make investigations evaporate." Jennifer leaned forward. "Gerald, Daniel thought he'd found his daughter. A girl in Sacramento. Do you know anything about that?" Gerald's face went pale. "The Sacramento facility. Jesus. He got close to that? What's special about Sacramento? That's where they keep the high-value assets. Children of specific characteristics. Certain looks, certain ages, certain backgrounds. They're being groomed for very particular buyers. Very wealthy, very connected buyers who want children with no trace, no history, no way to track them." Horror washed over me. "You're saying they're trafficking children to people who pay top dollar for anonymity. Politicians, business executives, foreign nationals. The Sacramento facility is the crown jewel of the network. If Daniel was investigating that, if he identified a specific child there," he trailed off, his meaning clear. "They killed him to protect their operation," Jennifer said flatly. "They would have killed anyone who got that close. And they'll kill you too if you keep pushing." He looked at me. "Mrs. Holloway, I'm sorry about your granddaughter. But if she's been in the system for 23 years, if she's at Sacramento, you need to walk away. Forget you ever heard about this. Because they won't just kill you. They'll destroy your reputation, your assets, everyone you love. They'll make you wish you'd never ask questions." I met his eyes. "Tell me about the girl." the one Daniel photographed. I don't know specifics. But I know there was a rush order 3 weeks ago. Move a high-priority asset from Sacramento to a secure location. No records, no trail. Just make her disappear. Where? Where did they take her? I don't know. I only coordinate Oregon transfers. Interstate movements go through different channels. Jennifer's jaw clenched. Give us a name, someone who would know. There's only one person who has access to those records. Her name is Catherine Brennan. She runs the Sacramento facility under the cover of a licensed group home. But she's more than just an administrator. She's the gatekeeper. Nothing happens in the Northern Network without her approval. How do we reach her? Gerald laughed bitterly. You don't. Catherine doesn't meet with strangers. She doesn't take calls from unknown numbers. She operates through intermediaries and encrypted channels. The only way to get to her is through someone she trusts. Do you have those intermediaries' names? He hesitated. If I give you that, if they trace it back to me. They won't, Jennifer lied smoothly. You have my word. He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket and slid it across the table. 3 names. 2 in Portland. 1 in Sacramento. They're her local contacts. But I'm telling you, approaching any of them is suicide. They're loyal to Catherine, and Catherine is loyal to whoever's running this operation. I took the paper and unfolded it. 3 names, 3 addresses, 3 phone numbers. The second name made my blood freeze. Rebecca Holloway, Portland, or my ex-daughter-in-law. Jennifer saw my reaction. What is it? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Rebecca, Daniel's ex-wife, the woman who'd blamed him for Charlotte's disappearance, the woman who'd been asking about his storage, his records, his investigation, the woman who'd called me yesterday asking if the police had contacted me. Gerald followed my gaze and winced. You know her. She's my son's ex-wife, I whispered. Oh, Christ. Then you need to run. Now. If she knows you're investigating, if she's reported back to Catherine. Jennifer grabbed my arm. Grace, we need to go. But I was still staring at Rebecca's name, my mind racing through 23 years of history. She'd been devastated when Charlotte disappeared. She'd blamed Daniel, divorced him, cut off all contact. But what if that had all been an act? What if she'd known what happened to Charlotte all along? What if she'd been the one who gave Charlotte to the network in the first place? Grace. Jennifer's voice cut through my thoughts. We have to move. Now. I looked up and saw what she saw. Gerald's eyes were fixed on something behind us. I turned and saw a man standing at the diner entrance, scanning the room. When his gaze landed on our booth, he reached for something under his jacket. Back exit, Jennifer hissed, pulling me from the booth. We ran through the Kit K, ignoring the shouts of the cook, and burst through the rear door into an alley. Jennifer's car was around the corner, but the man from the diner was already behind us, moving fast. Jennifer shoved me toward the car. Get in! A gunshot cracked the morning air. The brick wall beside my head exploded in dust and fragments. I dove into the passenger seat as Jennifer peeled away from the curb. Another shot hit the rear window, spiderwebbing the glass but not breaking through. Stay down, Jennifer shouted. I pressed myself against the seat as she took corners at impossible speeds, weaving through early morning traffic. After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, she slowed and checked the rearview mirror. I think we lost them. I sat up, my entire body shaking. They shot at us. They actually shot at us. Welcome to Daniel's world. Her voice was grim. Now you understand what he was up against. My mind was still reeling. Rebecca, my son's ex-wife, is working for them. It looks that way. She was there when Charlotte disappeared. She was the one who insisted Daniel take her to the park that day. She was the one who convinced him to answer his phone, to turn his back. My voice rose. She set it up. She let them take her own daughter. Jennifer didn't disagree. Why? Why would anyone do that? Money? Coercion? Blackmail? Or maybe she's just a true believer in whatever ideology drives this network. Does it matter? Yes. She's family. She was married to my son. We trusted her. And that's exactly why she was valuable to them. She had access, opportunity, and a perfect cover story. the devastated mother whose child was stolen. I thought of Rebecca's phone call yesterday, her questions about Daniel's investigation, her sudden interest in his belongings. She'd been gathering information, reporting back to Catherine Brennan, helping them figure out how much I knew. And I'd told her the police had come. I'd told her they were asking questions. I'd given them everything they needed to know. "I'm an idiot," I said. "No, you're a mother who trusted family. They exploited that." Jennifer glanced at me. "But now we have an advantage. We know who the traitor is. We know how to get to Catherine Brennan. Through Rebecca. Through Rebecca." I looked down at the paper Gerald had given us, at my ex-daughter-in-law's address. "What do we do?" Jennifer's smile was cold and dangerous. "We set a trap, and we make Rebecca lead us straight to Charlotte." The burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your house is on fire. Police and fire department responding. Thought you should know." My heart stopped. "My house—" Jennifer grabbed the phone and read the message. Her face went hard. "They're escalating. They want you scared, vulnerable, dependent. They want to drive you to someone you trust. Rebecca." "Exactly. Grace, this is it. This is where you decide. Walk away or finish what Daniel started." I looked at my burning house in my mind. The house where I'd raised my son, where Charlotte had taken her first steps, where Tom had died in his sleep. Every memory, every piece of my life, going up in flames. They wanted to erase me. Just like they'd erased Charlotte, erased Daniel, erased every child who'd passed through their network. But I wasn't going to disappear. "Let's finish it," I said. The fire had been contained to the basement, the fire chief told me over the phone. Accelerant detected. Arson, definitely. The police wanted to speak with me immediately. I stood in Jennifer's office, still shaking from being shot at, and listened to a stranger describe the systematic destruction of my life. The evidence I'd buried in Tom's old workshop foundation was safe. Everything else, Daniel's apartment records, family photos, 30 years of memories, was evidence in an arson investigation I couldn't afford to cooperate with. "Don't go back there," Jennifer said after I hung up. "That's what they want. They want you vulnerable, dependent, easy to control. I have nowhere else to go. You can stay at my place. It's small but secure." She paused. "Grace, we need to move fast. They're accelerating because they're afraid. That means we're close to something that terrifies them." I thought of Rebecca, of the carefully constructed lies she'd maintained for 23 years. We need to make her think I'm desperate, that I'm reaching out to family because I have nowhere else to turn. Jennifer nodded slowly. "And when she brings you in, when she thinks she has control," we flipped the script. I picked up my regular phone, the one they were likely monitoring. "I'm calling her now." "Grace, wait!" But I was already dialing. It rang 3 times before Rebecca answered. "Grace?" Her voice was carefully concerned. "I heard about the fire. My God. Are you okay?" "I don't know what to do." I let my voice crack, let 23 years of actual grief bleed into the words. "The police think it's arson. They think it's connected to Daniel, to whatever he was involved in. Rebecca, I'm scared." A pause. I could almost hear her calculating, weighing options. "Where are you now?" "A hotel in Portland. But I can't stay here. The police are watching, and I don't have anywhere." I swallowed hard. "I know we haven't been close. I know things ended badly between you and Daniel. But your family, you're the only family I have left." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "Of course, Grace. Of course you can stay with me. Come to my house. I'll make up the guest room." "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing. Family takes care of family. Do you remember my address?" "I think so. The condo in Pearl District?" "I moved 2 years ago. Let me text you the new address. Can you be here by this evening?" "Yes. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much." I hung up and looked at Jennifer. She took the bait. Good. Jennifer was already moving, pulling equipment from drawers, small devices I didn't recognize. "But we're not sending you in there unprepared. You're going to wear a wire. Audio and video, hidden camera in a button, microphone in your collar. Everything she says, everything you see, will be recorded and transmitted to me in real time. What if they search me? What if they find? They won't. This tech is designed for undercover work. It looks like ordinary clothing. She handed me a cardigan. Put this on. The button camera is the third one down. Don't touch it, don't adjust it. Just wear it normally. I changed into the cardigan, and Jennifer spent the next hour teaching me how to position myself for optimal recording, how to guide conversations toward admissions, how to stay calm if things went wrong. If at any point you feel unsafe, she said, handing me a small pendant on a chain, press this twice quickly. It'll send me your GPS location and an alert. I'll be 5 minutes away maximum. 5 minutes is a long time if someone's trying to kill me. Then don't let it get to that point. You're a grieving mother-in-law seeking comfort from family. Play that role. Let Rebecca think she's in control. Get her talking about Charlotte, about the network, about what happened to Daniel. We need her to incriminate herself. And if she realizes what I'm doing? Jennifer's expression was grim. Then you press that button and run. No heroics, no confrontations. Just get out. The burner phone buzzed. A text from Gerald. They know I talked to you. I'm running. Good luck. You're going to need it. Jennifer cursed. Our window just got smaller. If Gerald is running, they'll be on high alert. They might move Charlotte sooner than we thought. Then we don't have time to wait. I grabbed my purse. Rebecca's expecting me this evening. Let's not keep her waiting. Rebecca's new house wasn't a condo. It was a sprawling Victorian in the West Hills, the kind of property that cost millions and spoke of wealth I'd never known she had. The neighborhood was quiet, exclusive, with gates and security cameras on every corner. Jennifer dropped me off 3 blocks away. I'll be monitoring from here. Remember? You're scared, vulnerable, looking for comfort. Let her lead the conversation. I walked to Rebecca's door with my heart hammering against my ribs. The button camera felt heavy on my chest, though I knew it weighed nothing. Every step felt like walking into a trap I'd set for myself. Rebecca answered before I could knock, as if she'd been watching through the window. Grace. She pulled me into an embrace that felt practiced, calculated. I'm so glad you're safe. Come in. Come in. The house was elegant and cold. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, furniture that looked expensive but uncomfortable. No family photos. No warmth. Nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. This is beautiful, I said, playing my role. I didn't realize you'd done so well. Real estate investment. I got into it after the divorce. She guided me to a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Please sit. Can I get you tea? Something stronger? Tea would be lovely. She disappeared into the Kit K, and I used the moment to scan the room. A laptop sat on a side table, closed but likely passworded. A filing cabinet in the corner, locked. Everything was neat, controlled, sterile, like a showroom rather than a home. Rebecca returned with tea in expensive china cups. She sat across from me, her posture perfect, her expression sympathetic. Tell me what happened. Everything. I took a breath and began the story I'd rehearsed, discovering Daniel's things in the basement, the police visit, the fire. I let my voice shake in the right places, let tears come when they felt natural. And I watched Rebecca's face carefully, looking for tells. She was good. Very good. Her reactions seemed genuine, shock, concern, anger on my behalf. But there was something else, something underneath, a calculation happening behind her eyes. Grace, I need to tell you something. She set down her teacup. Something I should have told you years ago. My pulse quickened. What is it? Daniel didn't tell you everything about what he was doing. He was involved in something dangerous, something that... She paused, as if struggling with the words. He was trying to find Charlotte. I let surprise show on my face. Find her? But she's been missing for 23 years. I know. But Daniel never gave up. He spent years investigating, following leads, building cases against people he thought were responsible. She leaned forward. Grace, I need you to understand. What Daniel was doing was illegal. He was breaking laws, infiltrating organizations, putting himself in danger. And he got too close to something he shouldn't have. What do you mean? I mean, there are people who wanted him to stop. Powerful people who have resources beyond anything we can imagine. And I think, her voice dropped to a whisper, I think they killed him. It was a masterful performance. The concerned ex-wife, finally revealing the truth, positioning herself as an ally while actually gauging what I knew. Who are these people? I asked. I don't know all the details, but I know they're involved in adoption services, child welfare, maybe even trafficking. Daniel was trying to expose them, and now they're targeting you because they think he told you something, gave you evidence. He didn't tell me anything. I barely saw him in the months before he died. But you found something in the basement, something that made the police come asking questions. There it was. The real reason she'd invited me here. She wanted to know what I'd found. Just some papers. Financial records, I think. I didn't really understand them. The police took everything when they searched the house. I met her eyes. Rebecca, do you think Charlotte is still alive? Something flickered across her face. Too fast to read, but it was there. I don't know. After all these years. But what if she is? What if Daniel really found her? Then she's probably better off where she is. The words came out too quickly, too harsh. Rebecca caught herself, softened her tone. I mean, after 23 years, she wouldn't remember us. She'd have a different life, different family. Dragging her back into this would only hurt her. How can you say that? She's your daughter. She was my daughter. Now she's a ghost, Grace. And chasing ghosts is what got Daniel killed. I stared at her, at this woman I'd once called family, and saw a stranger. Worse than a stranger. An enemy who'd worn the mask of family for decades. You know where she is, I said quietly. Rebecca's expression didn't change. What? You know where Charlotte is. You've always known. Grace, the grief is making you... Don't. I stood. The fury I'd been holding back finally breaking through. Don't patronize me. Don't pretend. I know what you did. I know what you're part of. For a long moment, Rebecca just looked at me. Then her mask cracked, and something cold and calculating emerged. You're wearing a wire, she said calmly. My blood froze. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. Of course you are. Daniel's mother, suddenly helpless and desperate. It was too convenient, too perfect. She turned back to me. Who's listening? Jennifer Walsh? One of Daniel's other little collaborators? I reached for the pendant, but Rebecca was faster. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. I wouldn't do that if I were you. You press that button, and Charlotte dies. Not later. Not maybe. Right now. One phone call, and she's gone forever. You're lying. Am I? Grace, you have no idea how deep this goes, how many people are involved, how much money is at stake. Charlotte is alive, yes. She's been alive this entire time, being moved from facility to facility, always just out of reach. Daniel was close once, in Sacramento, but we moved her before he could act. We? I pulled my wrist free. You're part of this. You helped them take your own daughter. I saved her. Rebecca's voice rose. You think I had a choice? You think I could fight people with that kind of power? They came to me when Charlotte was 3 years old. They showed me photographs of other children who'd been taken, other families who'd tried to resist. They told me I could cooperate and Charlotte would be placed with a wealthy family, given a good life, or I could refuse and watch her disappear into something much worse. So you chose to sell her. I chose to keep her alive, and I've spent 23 years making sure she stays that way, making sure she's treated well, moved to good facilities, protected from the worst of what happens in that network. Do you think that was easy? Do you think I didn't hate myself every single day? Then help me get her back. I can't. If I help you, if I betray them, they'll kill us both. They'll kill Charlotte just to prove a point. She moved closer. Grace, I'm trying to save your life. Whatever evidence you found, whatever you think you know, bury it. Walk away. Daniel didn't, and look what happened to him. You killed him. No? But I didn't stop them when I found out what he'd discovered. I didn't warn him. I let it happen because I knew if he exposed the network, Charlotte would be eliminated as a loose end. Tears ran down her face now, real ones. I chose my daughter over my ex-husband. What mother wouldn't? The room felt like it was spinning. This woman had lived with this secret for 23 years, had attended Daniel's funeral knowing she'd allowed his death, had called me today planning to extract information while pretending to offer comfort. "Tell me where she is," I said. "Tell me where Charlotte is, and I'll help you. We'll get her out together." Rebecca laughed bitterly. "You don't understand. There is no getting her out. She's not locked in a room somewhere. She's integrated into the system. She has a new identity, a new life, handlers who watch her constantly. And even if we could extract her, they'd hunt us down. They'd make us disappear. I don't care. Well, I do. I care about staying alive. I care about Charlotte staying alive. And I care about making sure Daniel's investigation dies with him." She pulled out her phone. "I'm sorry, Grace. I really am. But I can't let you destroy everything I've built to protect my daughter." She dialed. Someone answered immediately. "It's Rebecca. We have a problem. Daniel's mother found his evidence. She's been working with Jennifer Walsh. Yes, she's here now, wearing a wire." A pause. "Understood. I'll keep her here until you arrive." She hung up and looked at me with something like pity. "They'll be here in 20 minutes. They're going to ask you where the evidence is hidden. I'd suggest you tell them the truth. They're not patient people." I pressed the pendant twice quickly. Rebecca saw and shook her head. "That won't help. 20 minutes, Grace. Jennifer Walsh can't get here fast enough." But I wasn't counting on Jennifer. I'd been counting on something else. Something I'd set up before I ever walked through Rebecca's door. "You're right," I said. "Jennifer can't get here in time, but they can." Rebecca frowned. "They." The sound of sirens filled the air. Multiple vehicles coming fast. Rebecca ran to the window and paled. "What did you do?" "I called the FBI this morning. I told them I had evidence of a child trafficking network operating across state lines. I told them I was meeting with someone who could give them names, locations, everything. I pulled out my regular phone, the one they'd been monitoring. Every word you just said was recorded and transmitted, not just to Jennifer, to Special Agent Aretha Brown, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Crimes Against Children Division." Rebecca's face went white. "You're lying." "Am I?" The siren stopped outside. Car doors slammed, heavy footsteps on the porch. "FBI, open the door!" Rebecca stared at me, her expression cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally, fear. "You just killed your granddaughter," she whispered. "No," I said. "I saved her. Because now they have to make a deal. Now they have to tell the FBI where Charlotte is, or face federal charges for trafficking, kidnapping, and murder. You wanted to protect her by keeping her hidden. I'm protecting her by bringing everything into the light." The door burst open. Federal agents flooded into the room, weapons drawn. "Rebecca Holloway, you're under arrest. Put your hands where we can see them." As they cuffed her, as they read her rights, Rebecca looked at me one last time. "You have no idea what you've done," she said. "No idea what's coming." But I did know. I knew this was only the beginning. I knew powerful people would fight back, would try to bury this investigation like they'd buried so many others. But this time was different. This time, a 68-year-old woman had outmaneuvered them all. And she wasn't done yet. The FBI kept me in a safe house for 3 days while they executed warrants across 5 states. I watched the news coverage from a sterile apartment with reinforced windows and armed guards outside my door. The story broke nationally on the second day. Multi-state child trafficking network exposed, federal arrests underway. They showed photographs of facilities being raided, of records being seized, of well-dressed professionals being led away in handcuffs. But they didn't show the children. They protected their identities, their faces, their stories. That was good. Those children had been exploited enough. Special Agent Aretha Brown visited me each evening to update me on the investigation. She was in her 40s, efficient and sharp, with eyes that had seen too much darkness but hadn't given up on finding light. "Rebecca is cooperating," she told me on the 3rd night. Once she understood the scope of the evidence against her, she decided saving herself was more important than protecting the network. "Has she told you where Charlotte is?" Kay's expression softened. "Mrs. Holloway, I need you to prepare yourself. The girl your son photographed in Sacramento, we found her. Her name is June Carlisle. She's been living with a family in Northern California for the past 6 months, placed there through what appeared to be legitimate adoption channels. My heart pounded. Can I see her? That's complicated. We've DNA tested her against samples from your son's apartment. The results came back this morning. She pulled out a folder. Mrs. Holloway, June Carlisle is your biological granddaughter. She's Charlotte. The room tilted. After 23 years of searching, of hoping, of grief, she was real. She was alive. Where is she now? In federal protective custody. We removed her from the Carlisle home 2 days ago. She's safe, she's being cared for, and she's very confused. Brown sat down across from me. Grace. May I call you Grace? I nodded, unable to speak. Grace. Charlotte doesn't remember you. She doesn't remember her father, her childhood, the life she had before. She was 5 when she was taken. For the past 23 years, she's been told different stories, given different identities, moved through different families. The last 6 months with the Carlisles were the most stable she's had, and now we've disrupted that too. But she's my granddaughter. Yes, and legally you have rights. But emotionally, psychologically, she's a 28-year-old woman who's been told her entire life that she's someone else. Forcing a relationship with biological family she doesn't remember could cause more harm than good. I just want to see her. Just once. To know she's real. Kay studied me for a long moment. I can arrange that. But I need you to understand, she may not want a relationship with you. She may be angry, confused, or completely uninterested. You need to be prepared for that. I am. I just need to see her. To tell her about her father, about how much he loved her, about how he never stopped searching. Kay nodded slowly. Tomorrow, we'll bring her here, and you can talk. But only if she agrees. We won't force this. They brought Charlotte June the next morning. I'd spent the entire night preparing what to say, practicing speeches in my head, imagining how she'd react. But when she walked through the door, all my carefully planned words evaporated. She looked like Daniel. The same dark eyes, the same stubborn set to her jaw, the same way of holding herself, like she was ready to fight or flee at any moment. But there was something else too. A wariness, a hardness that came from years of never feeling safe, never trusting that any place was home. She sat across from me at the dining table, with Agent Brown positioned discreetly in the corner. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Your Grace, she said finally. Her voice was careful, controlled. I am. Your father was my son, Daniel. They told me. They told me a lot of things in the past 3 days. About who I supposedly am. About what supposedly happened to me. She leaned forward. But I don't remember any of it. I don't remember you, or Daniel, or being someone named Charlotte. The earliest memory I have is being 7 years old in a group home in Seattle. Everything before that is just blank. That's not uncommon in cases like yours, Brown interjected gently. Childhood trauma, psychological conditioning, it can create significant memory gaps. June ignored her, keeping her eyes on me. Why are you doing this? Why couldn't you just let me be June? Let me live the life I've built? Because your father spent 23 years searching for you. Because he died trying to bring you home. Because you deserve to know the truth about who you are and where you came from. The truth? Her laugh was bitter. The truth is, I've been lied to by everyone my entire life. Foster parents who weren't really my parents. Social workers who were actually traffickers. The Carlisles, who I thought might finally be real family. They were just another placement, another temporary stop. And now you're telling me I had a real family all along? But they lost me at a playground because someone wasn't paying attention? The accusation stung, but I couldn't deny it. Your father made a mistake. One mistake, for 90 seconds. And he paid for it every single day for the rest of his life. He never forgave himself. He never stopped looking for you. Well, he's dead now. So I guess we'll never have that conversation. No, I said quietly. But you can have it with me. I can tell you about him. About the man he was, the father he was, how much he loved you. I have photographs, home videos, letters he wrote but never sent because he didn't know where you were. Her expression cracked slightly. Letters? Dozens of them. Birthday letters, Christmas letters, letters about his life and his regrets, and his hope that someday he'd find you. He never stopped being your father, June. Charlotte, whoever you choose to be. Silence stretched between us. I could see the war happening behind her eyes, the desire to know fighting against the fear of more pain, more disruption, more loss. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally. "Nothing. I don't want anything except for you to know that you were loved, that you are loved, that you have family who never forgot you." I reached into my bag and pulled out a photograph. Charlotte at 4 years old, sitting on Daniel's shoulders, both of them laughing at something off camera. "This is who you were. This is who loved you. And if you want to know more, if you want to be part of this family again, the door is open. But if you don't, if you need to walk away and build your own life, I'll understand." She took the photograph with trembling hands, stared at it for a long time, traced her finger over young Charlotte's face, over Daniel's smile. "I don't remember this," she whispered, "but I feel something, like an echo of something that used to be real." "That's enough," I said. "That's a start." The investigation continued for months. The network Rebecca had been part of stretched further than anyone had imagined. Hundreds of children, dozens of facilities, connections to adoption agencies in 12 states. The FBI arrested 47 people in the first wave, including Catherine Brennan from Sacramento. More arrests followed as they worked their way up the chain, but they never found the top. Whoever had been running the operation had vanished, dissolved into the shadows they'd always operated from. Agent Brown told me they might never find them, that some criminals were too well connected, too well protected to ever face justice. I told her I'd made my peace with that. I'd done what Daniel couldn't. I'd brought Charlotte home. Not literally, not yet. But I'd opened the door. Charlotte, she still preferred June, at least for now, visited me twice in the first month. Brief visits, awkward and stilted, filled with long silences and careful conversations. But they got easier. By the 3rd month, she was staying for dinner. By the 6th month, she'd brought a suitcase and asked if she could stay for a week. "I've been thinking about changing my name," she told me one evening as we sat on the porch of my newly rebuilt house. The insurance money had covered most of the repairs, and I'd taken the opportunity to update, to make the house feel less like a museum of the past and more like a place for building futures. To Charlotte? Maybe. Or maybe something that honors both names. Charlotte June. June Charlotte. I don't know yet. She looked at me. Is that weird? Trying to combine the person I was with the person I became? I think it's brave. And I think your father would be proud. She was quiet for a moment. I wish I remembered him. I've read his letters, watched the videos you gave me. He seems like he was a good person. He was. He was flawed and stubborn, and sometimes too focused on fixing the world instead of taking care of himself. But he was good, and he loved you more than anything. Agent Brown told me he was working undercover when he died, that he'd built this whole other identity to try to find me. He did. Multiple identities. He became whoever he needed to be to get close to the people who'd taken you. That must have been lonely, living all those lies. I think it was. But he did it anyway because bringing you home mattered more than his comfort, his safety, his life. June wiped at her eyes. I'm angry at him. For dying before I could meet him again. For not being here to answer all my questions. Is that terrible? No. It's honest. Grief and anger live together. Your father knew that better than anyone. We sat in silence, watching the sun set over the property Tom had worked for 40 years, that Daniel had grown up on, that Charlotte had played on before the world took her away. The FBI offered me counseling, June said, to help process everything. The trafficking, the memories, the identity stuff. Are you going to take it? Yeah. I think I need it. But I also think I need this. She gestured to the house, the land, the two of us sitting together. Family. Real family. Even if it's complicated and messy and I still don't really know how to do this. None of us do. We just figure it out as we go. She smiled. A real smile, not the careful, guarded expression she usually wore. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you do it? Why did you risk everything to find me? You could have walked away, lived a quiet life, stayed safe. But you didn't. I thought about that question, about all the ways I could answer it. Finally, I said, because I'm your grandmother, and because some things matter more than safety. Justice matters. Truth matters. Family matters. Your father understood that, and he taught me, even in death, that you're never too old to fight for what's right. Even when it's dangerous? Especially when it's dangerous. That's when fighting matters most. A year after Rebecca's arrest, I testified at her trial. The courtroom was packed with journalists, victims' advocates, and families of other children who'd been trafficked through the network. Rebecca sat at the defense table looking diminished, older, broken in ways that had nothing to do with physical age. When it was my turn to speak, I looked directly at her. You told me I'd killed Charlotte by exposing the network. But you're wrong. You killed her, the little girl she was, when you handed her to traffickers and spent 23 years pretending to be a victim instead of an accomplice. What I did was give June a chance to decide who she wants to be, to build a life based on truth instead of lies. That's not killing. That's liberation. Rebecca was sentenced to 25 years. Catherine Brennan got 40. Others received sentences ranging from 5 years to life. The network was dismantled, the children identified and returned to families or placed in legitimate care. It wasn't a perfect ending. Some children were never found. Some families never got closure. The person at the top of the organization remained free, likely rebuilding in some other state, some other system. But it was enough. For now, it was enough. 2 years after everything began, June moved into the farmhouse permanently. She'd finished her degree, psychology, specializing in trauma recovery, and gotten a job at a nonprofit helping trafficking survivors. I figure I should put my experience to use, she told me. Help other people who went through what I did. We turned Tom's old workshop space into a garden, raised beds full of vegetables, flowers that attracted butterflies, a small greenhouse for starting seeds. June said working with growing things helped her heal, helped her feel connected to life instead of loss. On what would have been Daniel's 50th birthday, we planted a tree in his memory. An oak, strong and enduring. June and I stood beside it in the gathering dusk. Do you think he knows? She asked. That you found me? That I'm here? I don't know, but I like to think he does. I like to think he's finally at peace. She took my hand, something she'd only started doing in recent months. This physical connection to family she was slowly learning to trust. Thank you, she said, for not giving up, for being brave when everyone expected you to be helpless, for showing me that family can be real. Thank you for giving me a second chance, for letting an old woman back into your life. She laughed. You're not old. You're dangerous. You took down a trafficking network at 68. That's basically superhero territory. I prefer to think of it as grandmother territory. We're tougher than people expect. Clearly. We stood together as darkness fell, grandmother and granddaughter, rebuilding what had been broken, creating something new from the fragments of what was lost. The house behind us glowed with warm light. Not a museum anymore. Not a memorial to grief. A home. Finally, truly, a home. And that was the real victory. Not the arrests, not the justice, not even the vindication. The victory was this: standing in the garden with my granddaughter, watching an oak tree take root, knowing that wisdom and patience and love had triumphed over violence and greed. They'd underestimated me because I was old, because I was a woman, because I was grieving. That had been their fatal mistake. Age isn't weakness. It's accumulated strength. Every year we survive, every challenge we overcome, every loss we carry, it builds us into something formidable, something that can't be broken by fear or threats or violence, something that endures. I looked at June, at the tree, at the house where 3 generations had lived and loved and lost and found their way back to each other. This was my legacy, not the property, not the possessions, not even the evidence that brought down a criminal empire. This. A young woman learning to trust again, to hope again, to believe that family could be real and home could be safe. That was worth everything. Worth the danger, worth the fear, worth walking into darkness without knowing if I'd emerge. Daniel had started this journey, but I'd finished it. And I'd taught everyone who'd underestimated me a lesson they'd never forget. Never ever dismiss the determination of a grandmother protecting her family. We're more dangerous than anyone imagines, and we always finish what we start. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.